අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday the 18th of April 2023. Legislative approval. Cabinet approves to seek parliamentary approval for the IMF agreement. Our reforms. Final draft of the new electricity bill to be presented to Parliament for approval by May end. Express Treasure. Minister of Justice Vijaydas Rajapaksa says an official has been bribed $250 million to sweep Express Pearl vessel compensation of $6.2 billion under the carpet. Digital trends. State Minister of Tourism Derana English believes that blockchain technology is a change called for in Sri Lanka.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමක්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, the Cabinet of Ministers today granted approval to obtain the stance of all members of Parliament on the main policy measures of the Extended Fund Facility Agreement with the International Monetary Fund. According to the Cabinet spokesperson, Dr. Bandula Gunawardena, the IMF agreement will be debated in Parliament from the 25th of April.
On 20th of March, the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund approved a $2.9 billion bailout package, of which the first tranche amounting to $330 million was disbursed to Sri Lanka. The agreement reached with the IMF was presented to the Parliament for debate and approval by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Finance. Earlier this month, the head of state said the key points of the agreement would be enacted into a law following parliamentary approval. At the Cabinet meeting yesterday, the Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to obtain the stance of all members of Parliament on the main policy measures of the Extended Fund Facility Agreement reached with the International Monetary Fund.
විශේෂයෙන් ජනාධිපතිතුමා පැහැදිලි විස්තරයක් කළා. දැනට ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය අරමුදලේ විස්තීර්ණ අරමුදල් පාසුකම් සැපීම සඳහා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ අනුමැතිය ලබා ගන්න. එතකොට ඒ කිවිසුමත් ඒකට අදාළ සියලු ලියකියවිලිත් ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයා වශයෙන් ලංකාවේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කළා. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට පිළිගැන්වුවා. ඒ පිළිබඳ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ 25 වෙනිදා සිට පුළුල් ලෙස ප්‍රබුද්ධ විවාදයක් පවත්වලා එයට සියලුම දෙනාගේ එකඟතාවය ලබා ගන්න ඉදිරිපත් කළ යෝජනාවට කැබිනට් අනුමැතිය ලැබුණා.
Meanwhile, the Cabinet approved the Social Welfare Benefits Payment Scheme proposed by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Finance. According to the Cabinet spokesperson, the government plans to spend 206 billion rupees a year on welfare benefits. Following recommendations made by a technical committee, benefits will be paid to individuals who are poor, who are in extreme poverty, and those who are at risk. Separate benefits will be paid to disabled, kidney patients, and the aged. The new scheme will be in operation from 1st of July this year.
The Minister of Justice Vijaydas Rajapaksa revealed today that the received intelligence that a Sri Lankan official has been bribed with $250 million to sweep the Express Pearl's compensation of $6.3 billion under the carpet. Following this, the Marine Environment Protection Authority filed a case with the Criminal Investigation Department to investigate the allegations made by the Justice Minister. On the 20th of May 2021, the Express Pearl, which arrived from India, caught fire near the Colombo port on the 20th of May. 1,486 containers with nitric acid and other chemicals on board the ship, along with many other containers, caught fire and sank to the bottom of the ocean. The disaster caused huge environmental damage to the sea coast and ecosystem near Negombo. Given the fallout effects of the disaster, the government has been questioned as to why the prosecution has not been done yet, even though there is a possibility of getting a compensation of $6.2 billion from the shipping company. Accordingly, 32 days are remaining for the case to be filed.
මට නිරන්තරයෙන්ම යම් පාර්ශව තුරතුරු දුන්නා යම් පාර්ශවයක් මේක යට ගහන්න මේ අල්ලසක් අරන් තියනවා කියලා. මට දුන්න තොරතුරු අනුව සිංහල නමක් තියෙන එංගලන්තේ බැංකුවක පුජ්‍යලයේගේ ගිණුමට ඩොලර් මිලියන 250ක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. මෙන්න මේක තමයි ගිණුම් අංකය. මේක තමයි මේ ගනුදෙනු ට්‍රාන්සැක්ෂන් රෙෆරන්ස් නම්බර් එක කියලා. මේක ඇත්ත නැත්නම් අපි දන්නේ නැහැ. මේක බරපතල කාරණයක් ඇත්තනම් විශේෂයෙන්. නිසා මම ඒක එදිනම පොලිස්පතිවරයාට සහ CID එකේ නියෝජ්‍ය පොලිස්පතිවරයාට බාර දීලා තියෙනවා. දැන් ඒ පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කරලා කරගෙන යනවා.
Meanwhile, the officers of the Marine Environment Protection Authority filed a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department today, asking for an investigation regarding the allegations made by the Minister of Justice.
අපිට ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන් සියලුම තොරතුරු ඔවුන්ට ලබා දෙනවා. ඒ සමගම දැන් ඔවුන් අපිට දීලා තියෙනවා මේ ඇෂුරන්ස් එකක්. මේක ඒ දිනට ප්‍රථම ෆයිල් කරනවා කියන පදනමක් අපිට දීලා තියෙනවා.
දීවරයන්ට සම වන්දි අධීර 3කදී පමණ හම්බුණා. ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් සහ මේ නඩුව පැවරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් තියෙන ගැටලු සාකච්ඡා
ඒවා ඉන්ටරිම් පේමන්ට්. සෝ ඒවා තමයි දැන් දීවරයන්ට සිදු පාඩුව බීච් එක පිරිසුදු කිරීමට ගෙවපු මුදල්. ඔව ඔක්කොම මේ తాවකාලික ගෙවි. ඒවා අපි ඔවුන් සමග ඇති වූ එකගතාවයක් මත තමයි ඒක කරගෙන ගියේ. දැන් ඒවත් රක්ෂණ සමාගම සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නවත්තලා තියෙනවා ඒ ගෙවි. දැන් එන්නේ ඒ සම්බන්ධිනොත් අපි ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
Now, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara says that the final draft of the new electricity bill will be presented to Parliament for approval by the end of May. Meanwhile, Cabinet approval has been granted for the Ceylon Electricity Board's restructuring roadmap and timeline.
In August last year, an 8-member committee was appointed to propose recommendations to restructure the Ceylon Electricity Board. According to the Power and Energy Ministry, the committee was tasked with submitting recommendations within a month from their appointment to restructure the state-owned institution. In October, the expert committee report recommendations to restructure the CEB was presented to the Cabinet of Ministers and it was approved on the 28th of November. In a tweet, the subject minister said the electricity reforms bill will be drafted within a month to begin the unbundling process of the CEB. In the latest development of the CEB restructuring process, Cabinet approved the proposed roadmap and timeline of restructuring. According to Minister Kanchana Wijesekara, the final draft of the new Electricity Act will be presented to Parliament for approval by the end of May. In a tweet, he also noted that approval was also granted to establish a reform secretariat to obtain assistance from development agencies such as Asian Development Bank, World Bank, USAID and Japan International Cooperation Agency for the process, to conduct a financial and human resource audit and to complete the transition process by October 2023.
Now, Minister of Justice Dr. Vijayadas Rajapaksa reiterated that the new anti-terrorism bill to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act will be specifically applicable to those involved in terrorist-related activities and not to suppress protesters, the media or trade unions. Addressing the Cabinet media briefing today, the Justice Minister said that these subjected under the bill will, if they are deliberately promote or any terrorist-related activity.
මේ පනත අදාළ වෙන්නේ කාටද?
This act is relevant to those who are engaged in terrorism-related activities. We prepared this draft bill with responsibility. A fear has been created that this act will be used to suppress protesters, media and trade unions. When we were appointing committees in 2015 to prepare the draft bill, there were no mention of struggles in the country. The bill-making process started 8 years ago. There's a lot of people who represent the rights of terrorists. However, they have failed to represent 99% of the people who are against terrorism. Sometimes the media too remains silent in this regard. As a government, what is the point if we fail to protect the lives of the people? We need to protect the fundamental rights of the people who are living, not the dead. There's no problem if the Supreme Court determines amendments where necessary. We prepare laws not to protect ourselves, the president or the government. The law is specially made to protect the lives of the people.
විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ නීතිය අදලා තියෙන්නේ මේ රටේ ජනතාවගේ ජීවිත ආරක්ෂා කරන්න.
උද්ඝෝෂණයක් පවතින අවස්ථාවක ඒ උද්ඝෝෂණය වාර්තා කිරීම තුළින් ජනතාව කැළඹවීමක් සිදුවන නිසා මාධ්‍ය මර්ධනයක් ගෙනීමට යම්කිසි සූදානමක් තිබෙන බව සඳහන් වෙනවා.
මෙතෙන්දි මාධ්‍ය සම්බන්ධව අපි කියලා තියෙන්නේ
What we have referred to in the bill is with regard to the role of the media in promoting terrorism-related activities. However, it is mentioned that the journalists will not get subjected to the provisions of the bill if he has promoted a terrorist-related activity without knowing that it is such an activity.
එහෙම අවස්ථාවකවත් මාධ්‍යවේදියෙක් මේ පනතට යටත් කරන්න බෑ කියලා.
Now, former Attorney General Dapula de Oliveira has been informed to appear before the Terrorism Investigation Division tomorrow to record information on his controversial statement of a grand conspiracy behind the Easter Sunday bomb attacks in 2019. In May 2021, former Attorney General Dapula de Oliveira claimed that there had been a grand conspiracy with regard to the 2019 April attacks that left 269 killed and over 500 others injured on Easter Sunday of 2019. He noted that evidence and intelligence material and relevant pieces of information must be carefully evaluated in order to reach a conclusion on those who led the attacks. The former Attorney General added that the information provided by the State Intelligence Service with regard to the targets, places, times, methods of attack and other information remains clear evidence that there was a grand conspiracy. On the 15th of May, in a letter to IGP C.D. Vikramaratne, the former Attorney General said that the Aegis Department was unable to press charges or file indictments against the conspirators and abettors of the Easter Sunday attack, as the CID had not completed its investigations.
The Dapula Oliveira's statement is a very, very serious matter. Now, you said the police or the IG has been instructed to record a statement from him. Has it been recorded now? Oh, what
we discussed it that, yesterday, because it has been raised from many parts, especially that's the Catholic community. And the victims, they are relying heavily on that statement made by the former Attorney General. And therefore, I believe that it's a duty on the part of the government to look into that one and to address that issue. We don't take decisions, but we have advised inform the Attorney General to give the correct legal advice to the relevant parties.
Now, State Minister of Tourism Derana English believes that the introduction of blockchain technology is the change that was called for during the youth protests last year. Speaking during the launch of the first blockchain centre in Sri Lanka yesterday, State Minister Gamage said that this is also the key to develop the country through tourism and technology. Speaking during the event, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri said that even though Sri Lanka declared bankruptcy last year, the authorities constantly took care of the people.
A conference attended by investors from member countries affiliated to the blockchain organization, which intervenes to bring investments and tourists to Sri Lanka, was held yesterday in Colombo. During the conference, Sri Lanka's first blockchain centre was also launched yesterday. It was chaired by Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri and State Minister for Tourism Derana English.
More than 2,000 big containers pass by our port city every day. There are massive opportunities here. That's why a company in China had decided to put 15.4 billion worth of an investment in creating the ports. They wouldn't have done it for nothing. So that's the kind of potential this country has. Unfortunately, we have not been able to achieve our true potential over a long period of time for various reasons. Going forward, we would have seen that we are trying to integrate and create a lot of connectivity with India. Already flights are flying from Palali to Jaffna to India. We want to increase that, bigger flights to come. And hopefully, towards the end of this month, we will open the ferry service. So with that, there's so much of opportunities here. So we don't need to fight each other. We must work together and build this nation so everyone will have a good life. That's what we are creating. With Sri Lanka has the potential to do so. And with all our free education and free health, how many countries in the world could provide that? And we have provided that. We have bankrupt, yes, 1 year ago for a good reason. Corruption may be one reason, but we have looked after our people. 100% free education for all, through healthcare, electricity for all, and about 30 million or more connection of mobile phones for 20 million population. So it all come at a cost.
When they explained to me what this blockchain could bring to Sri Lanka, I was very impressed and I thought, yes, I think this is it. We need these things. We need Sri Lanka and the young generation especially. We need them educated to work with the world, to go into the international markets, especially with education and job opportunities. Being the State Minister of Tourism, I also found that this can bring a lot of tourism to Sri Lanka. As you just witnessed some of our culture of Sri Lanka. But I have to say to you, this is just a drop in the ocean. There's so much in Sri Lanka to explore as a tourism destination. Today we have managed with everything to come on to one of the top 10 countries in the world as a tourist destination. And second, with wildlife. We had youngsters on the street last year by this time looking for a system change. And I believe that the system change they are looking for is exactly this. This is the change. We have to be able to face as a nation to interact with other countries and to come up to that level. And these youngsters and their young lives, we have to cater for the next generation who's willing and open the opportunity for them to take over this country, but not in a crisis situation or a bankrupt nation. We need to develop it. We're looking forward to giving it over as a developed country to the next generation. So I would like to say, we cannot go back to the normal Sri Lanka, because the normal Sri Lanka didn't work. If we go back to normal, we wouldn't have learned the lesson. So we have to go back and make it better, not normal.
And we'll be back with more news right after this short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි. ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්. මේ අලුත් අවුරුද්දේ හිත පිරෙන ගනුදෙනුවකට හොඳම තැන හිත ගිය තැන බැංකුව HNB.
ලාභ ඉපයීම් සහ කොටස්කරුවන් සඳහා ප්‍රතිලාභ වසරින් වසර ඉහළට 2022 දී රුපියල් බිලියන 23.6ක බදු පෙරලාභයක්. ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්.
Welcome back. Now, State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siyamalapitiya says that the expected income from the customs has declined by 12% during the first quarter of this year due to the import bans imposed during the past couple of years. Addressing media following a meeting at the Ministry of Finance, the Finance Minister stated that the import bans will be relaxed in accordance in a systematic manner.
ජනවාරි පෙබරවාරි මාර්තු වල රේගුවෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙච්ච රාජ්‍ය ආදායම මේ කාර්යයේ 112ක විතර අපේ ඉලක්කත් එක්ක බලපුවාම අඩුවක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුත් අපි දකිනවා. එකක් රේගුවේ ආදායම සම්පූර්ණ රැඳී පවතින ආනයන බදු මතනේ. ඉතින් ඒ ආනයන අපි 2021 වර්ෂයේ 485ක් විතර නවත්තපුවා තාම තියෙනවා විශේෂයෙන් වාහන වාගේ දේවල්. 2022 වර්ෂයේ නවත්තපු ඒවා 750ක් විතර තියෙනවා. ඉතින් මේකත් එක්ක රේගුවට ලොකු බලපෑමක් තියෙනවා ආදායම රේගුවේ අඩුවීමට.
එමතුම යම් ආනයන භාණ්ඩවල සීමා ඉවත් කරනවා.
ඒක ඉතා ක්‍රමානුකූලව කරන්න අවශ්‍යයි. ඔබතුමාලා දන්නවා අපි මේ සීමාවන් දැමීම තුල තමයි අර සැතපුම් ගණන් දිග ඉන්ධන පෝලිම් ගෑස් පෝලිම් අද නැති වුනේ. ඒ නිසා ඒවා ලිහිල් කිරීම බොහොම කල්පනාවෙන් කරන්න ඕනේ.
The Sri Lankan shares closed lower today as the financial and industrial sector stocks lodged losses. The all-share price index fell 0.864% rather to 9,345.53, marking a second consecutive session of loss. The S&P SL20 index, however, ended at 2,728.95, following a gain of 1.41%. Diversified conglomerates LOLC Holdings and Expo Lanka Holdings were the top drags on the CSE all-share price index, down about 2% and 0.7% respectively. Trading volume for the SPI rose to 58.4 million shares from 46.1 million in the previous session. The market turnover fell to 1.14 billion Sri Lankan rupees or $3.58 million from 1.29 billion rupees in the previous session. In the meantime, the capital goods sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while transportation sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers in the equity market, purchasing stocks worth 233.2 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 946.9 million rupees. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Now, oil fell for a second day today as upbeat Chinese economic data failed to deflect the focus from a possible increase to US interest rates and wider concern about the growth outlook. Further coming into focus today will be the latest snapshot of US inventories and a report from the American Petroleum Institute.
Brent crude futures fell by 18 cents to settle at $84.58 a barrel, giving up earlier gains, while US West Texas Intermediate lost 2 cents to end the day at $80.81. Earlier in the session, oil had found support from figures showing that China's economy grew by a faster than expected 4.5 in the first quarter and that oil refinery rose to record levels in March. But the prospect of another increase to US interest rates, which has been supporting the US dollar, remained a drag on sentiment. Traders expect the US Federal Reserve to raise rates by 55 basis points at its May meeting. A stronger dollar makes commodities priced in the US currency more expensive for buyers holding other currencies. Crude was also pressured by the Iraq federal government and Kurdistan regional government, taking a step towards a resumption in northern oil exports from the Turkish port of Ceyhan after they were halted last month. Meanwhile, coming into focus today will be the latest snapshot of US inventories. Analysts expect US crude inventories to fall by about 2.5 million barrels and also forecast declines in gasoline and distillates. Further, the first of this week's two reports from the American Petroleum Institute is due later today.
Now, China's economy grew at a faster than expected pace in the first quarter of the year after the end of strict COVID curbs were lifted on businesses and consumers who were facing crippling pandemic-based disruptions. More than a year-long sweeping streak of global monetary policy tightening to rein in red-hot inflation has dented world economic growth, leaving many countries, including China, reliant on domestic demand to spur momentum and raising the challenge for policymakers looking for post-COVID stability. Now, the gross domestic product grew 4.5% year-on-year in the first 3 months of 2023, according to data from the National Bureau of Statistics. That also showed that faster than 2.9% in the previous quarter. It beat analyst forecasts for a 4% expansion and marked the strongest growth in a year. Chinese policymakers have pledged to step up support for the $18 trillion economy to keep a lid on unemployment, but they face limited room to maneuver as businesses grapple with debt risk, structural woes and global recession worries. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Tune into our social media pages to stay updated on the very latest. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.